In this driving lesson video, I'm going to go through the driving test report sheet of a girl who emailed me a few weeks ago. I'm going to explain to you what the tester said to her, and I'm going to offer lots of tips and advice so that you don't make the same mistakes that she did. If you would like to support me here on YouTube, you can do so by making a voluntary donation by PayPal. I want to say a big thank you to anybody out there who has been supporting me by PayPal recently. I really and truly appreciate it. It's donations like yours is what keeps the channel going, both for you and for the learners following you. So thank you again. So let's get back to this video on the driving test report sheet of this person. So let's have a look at the driving test sheet now. So this person got a mixture between grade 1s, grade 2s and grade 3 marks. So there's 3 grade 1s there. Now grade 1s are just minor marks. They don't generally impact on the overall result, unless of course you get too many grade 1s, and in that case they may evolve into a grade 2 mark. For example, this person here got 2 grade 1 marks on their position at roundabouts. Now if she had have made another minor mistake in terms of position at roundabouts, there's no more space for a grade 1 because you can only get a maximum of 2 grade 1 marks. So that would have or could have evolved into a grade 2 then if she had got one more on position at roundabouts, but it appears she didn't here. So grade 1s are minor and generally they don't impact on the overall result. Grade 2s do. They are your average marks, standard marks, medium-sized marks we'll call them. If you get 9 or more grade 2 marks, that's a fail. It's also a fail if you get too many grade 2s under the 1 category. And this person got 9 grade 2s in this test, so that on its own is going to be a fail. But she also got 2 grade 3 marks, as you'll see here. Now grade 3 marks are serious mistakes, and these are things that the tester has deemed to be dangerous or potentially dangerous. So these are mistakes that should not be excused and should not be overlooked, okay? And this person got 2 grade 3 marks here, which we're going to go through now very soon. So let's start with the grade 1 mark on rules and checks. This comes down to getting this sign here mixed up with this sign. Generally her theory and road signs were quite good. She only lost the 1 mark, but she specifically remembers getting these 2 signs mixed up, okay? So this is a crossroads with a dual carriageway ahead, and this is a T-junction with a dual carriageway ahead. Now, according to the driving test candidate, she just got those mixed up, so she might have answered that as a crossroads or that as a T-junction, but just a mix-up there. But as I said, it was just a minor mark, so it didn't have a big impact on the test. She lost 2 grade 1 marks on position at roundabouts. Now, these are the last of the grade 1s, the last of the minor marks we'll be discussing. So she said that she felt that she swerved slightly on her approach to the roundabout. So let's just move that over there for a second. Let's say she's the blue car here. So she's saying from what she said in the email that she just maybe slightly came over like that, or maybe slightly came over like that, but at no stage did she lose her position or obstruct another vehicle. But she does remember momentarily losing focus with the wheel and just kind of having a little bit of a swerve. Maybe it could have been closer here as well, because I notice a lot of people, from my experience, they don't take into account the curve here, and they sometimes have to correct themselves and just do that, like, you know, like point the car slightly towards 11 o'clock to go around the roundabout. Sometimes that's a factor. But she said just a slight swerve was what happened there. The other grade 1 mark on the position at roundabouts, she's not completely sure of, but she thinks it's because there was a lorry. Let's bring this red car back here, okay? So let's say the red, just pretend the red car is a big lorry, okay, a big truck there. She's saying that because the lorry was there and it was kind of over on her side a little bit like this, for example, she felt that the lorry was taking up a bit of her space. So maybe she should have, instead of going in a normal position like that and in the center of the lane, maybe the tester felt she should have came around this side like that a bit more, just to take into account the fact that the lorry is taking up more space. Now, she didn't say what lane it was in. It could have been that the lorry was here. The lorry was in the left lane, let's say. And maybe instead of driving in the center of her lane there, she needed to just come over this way a little bit like that and just give the lorry a bit of room because he was sticking out. And sometimes that will happen with buses and lorries. You may have to take preventative action because they might be slightly taking up more space than you would have anticipated. Next we have position stopping. In this case, it seems that the learner driver just stopped too close to the vehicle in front. So there may have been a turn off up ahead. There may have been one or two cars turning in here, for example. So this is the vehicle in front, the yellow car, and this is her, the blue car. She feels that, and the tester told her this anyway, that she definitely stopped too close to the vehicle in front. I always say you should be able to see, at the very, very, very least, the bottom bumper of the car in front. But realistically, you should be able to see below that, so the wheels and even the ground. It can depend on the height of your seat now as well. It's not a simple one-size-fits-all answer. But I generally say try and see the bottom tyres and a little bit of the ground of the car in front. And try and see a little bit extra, as in stop a little bit further back if you're both stopped on an uphill. And that way you're taking into account the possibility that the car in front could roll back on the hill. So you have to, treat each road based on its individual merits and demerits, So that's all there. She just got a little bit too close to the car in front. Maybe it was through lack of concentration. Maybe she didn't read the road ahead and she didn't see that there was maybe one or two cars up here that are slowing down in order to turn. And maybe she was so focused on what was directly in front of her that she didn't kind of anticipate the car slowing down, and perhaps that led to some late braking and ultimately stopping a little bit too close to the car in front. Next, observation changing lanes, where the driving test candidate lost one grade 2 mark. Now this is generally for not enough mirror checks and maybe not getting the quick sideways glance when changing lanes. Now it doesn't have to be like a dual carriageway kind of changing lanes. It could be this here, like a right turn kind of a lane change, because this is a filter lane here, otherwise known as a protected right turn, which allows traffic to come into this lane and then doesn't interfere with traffic going straight. So it's good for traffic flow. But you have to check your mirrors before you're indicating back here when you get the direction. And then it's very, very important that you double check your mirrors here just before you go into the new lane for the right turn. But usually, well, not usually, but sometimes I should say, it's down to changing lanes on a dual carriageway or some kind of an urban situation where you're required to kind of move across the road. So let's say she's the blue car here and there's maybe a yellow car behind her here. I'm going to put that yellow car there just deliberately in the blind spot of the blue car. So just pretend this is like a dual carriageway going this way, so they're all going straight this way. It's very important, if you're asked to change lanes, okay, that you check your mirrors. So you're, say from left to right, for example. So you check your middle mirror and then your right side mirror, and then you indicate. It's very important you get that done first, because those first mirror checks and the indicator are crucial. The first mirror checks helps to set the scene so you can see what's behind you. For example, is there a yellow car here or anyone else? And then the indicator then lets the yellow car know what your intentions are. Now, if the yellow car is paying attention, the yellow car may well just kind of hold back a little bit and give you the chance to go across. But if you're not indicating, the yellow car is not going to be aware, and he may or she may kind of speed up or slow down, but they're not going to be considering your actions, or there's less chance of it anyway if you're not indicating. So make sure you check your mirrors, indicate. Now it's crucially important that you double check the mirrors again before you go across, okay? And not even once, but 2 and 3 times double check them. Usually short, quick mirror checks is best, so that way you're not taking your eyes off the road too long, and you're not necessarily looking for anything specifically, you're just looking for a flash across your mirrors, like that would indicate a car or a cyclist or something, or a motorbike coming up behind you. It's a good idea as well, just before you make that move across, okay, so just before your wheels crosses that center white line, to just get a quick sideway glance. It's kind of like chin to right shoulder going from left to right, so your chin does not go beyond your shoulder, because I really don't want to have people looking behind them when they're driving at speed here. Just a quick blind spot, just to make sure that there's nothing in this kind of area here, like your 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock area where the yellow car is. So the yellow car is in the blue car's blind spot here. And that quick blind spot can be crucial, just to make sure that you're not going across as this person is speeding up, And make sure when you're getting your blind spot as well, that just before you check your blind spot, so just in that millisecond before you check your blind spot, this is very important, that you're looking straight ahead first and then check the blind spot. So I don't advise that you check your mirrors, as in your middle mirror and right side mirror, and then straight away immediately turn to get a quick sideway glance, because that means you might be taking your eyes off the road for just a millisecond too long. So by all means double check the mirrors, then just a quick glance in front of you just to make sure everything is all clear here, and then quick blind spot, and then back to looking straight and checking the mirrors, and over you go. Make sure you're indicating and move across nice and gradually. So in summary, if people lose marks on observation changing lanes, it's usually from lack of mirrors, so lack of double checking the mirrors, and perhaps the lack of a quick sideway glance just to watch out for anybody in your blind spot. Next, observation at roundabouts. The person here lost 1 grade 2 mark on their observation at roundabouts. So this is generally speaking down to a lack of looks, not looking to the right enough, maybe missed a mirror check as well here and there. It all depends. She wasn't able to give me any feedback because she says the tester never actually explained that to her in any kind of detail. So that's why she emailed me to get information on these type of things. So if we come back to the start here anyway, as soon as you get the direction, maybe the tester might say, let's take the third exit to the right. So make sure you check your mirrors, indicate to the right, let people know in good time what your plans are, what your intentions are. And as soon as you get an idea where you're going, try and have a look at the signs as well. Any signs, like there's a sign for roundabout, there's this directional sign. And be aware of any road markings as well, because very often your position is linked to your observation. So if you're observing the lanes and you're observing the markings, that can lead to a good position. So make sure as you're approaching the roundabout, slowing down, getting on the gears, that you're already looking to the right. Do not wait until you get to here and then suddenly decide to look to the right. That's too late. You haven't previewed, you haven't anticipated. So even as you're coming up to the roundabout, look in advance, because if it's a bigger roundabout, a broader roundabout, and nice and open and safe and you can see clearly, well then if you have good observation, you're probably going to be able to go in third gear, or maybe second gear, but third gear, you can definitely do it in third gear if it's a bigger roundabout and if you have an open and a clear gap to go. But it's only by having good observation is where you can succeed on that gears aspect of it too. So again, observation, as I said, is linked to position, as I said a few moments ago, and good observation can be linked to not losing marks on gears as well, as I've just explained. So as you're getting closer, kind of keep the head moved, like looking this way, looking right, straight, pretend my finger is your head here. Don't stare the one way too long. Don't be focused on straight ahead. Do not keep staring to the right. You have to keep the head moving like that. Glances as you approach, and the more informed you are then by moving that head, the better you are going to be able to make the decision to go when the time comes to go, when you're at or near the line. And if you're stopping then and it's a bit busier and you have cars like this coming from the right here, make sure handbrake if you need it. But again, keep the head moving both ways. Don't stare to the right. Just because there's cars coming there, do not stare to the right. Do look there most of the time, but remember to look back this way as well, because if there's a queue of cars having developed, if you're looking to the right all the time, and then all of a sudden you see, oh great, there's a gap over there. Now I'm the blue car, now I can go. And you decide to go then, and you're still staring to the right, and then you suddenly look straight ahead. You can see what's going on here. Because you've been staring to the right, there's a chance there that you could actually block the lane of the roundabout here, which will be a bad thing. And again, it goes to show how your position is linked to observation sometimes. So that's why we don't stare the one way too long. We keep the head moving, and then just as you get over the white line, and presuming everything is okay and everything is safe to go, just once your front wheels cross the white line, just make sure you get that one last look to the right then, just a confirmation look, just to make sure everything is okay. Now we'll just bring that yellow car out of the way for a second. Now, and as you're going around the roundabout as well, it's no harm, let's say you're taking the third exit to the right, it's no harm just to keep a quick eye on the mirrors every so often as you're going around. And then just when you're here then, when you're level with this exit, you would check the mirrors and indicate left. It's very important that you check your mirrors before you indicate here, because just in case there's a danger on your inside here, you need to be checking your mirrors here to make sure there's no red car behind you, for example. And the same if you're going straight. So let's say, so you've been in the left lane going straight, no indicator. Make sure you get the looks in, get the last look. keep in the left lane. Now just when you're about there, make sure you check your mirrors and indicate left to exit this lane here, okay? It's important to get all 3 mirrors. You can get the middle mirror first if you want to, and the side mirror, just to break it up a bit, because you don't want to be doing all 3 at the one time in case you're taking your eyes off the road too long. And then just a little bit further up, maybe here, let's say here for example, just get the right side mirror here, just to watch out for any cars that could be thinking about taking a little scenic route up your right hand side here. So that's why it's good to check the mirrors as you exit it off the roundabout, just in case there could be potentially danger behind you. Most of the time there won't be, but it's good to get into the habits of doing this both when changing lanes and when exiting roundabouts. Next we have observation turning right, and the driving test candidate here lost 2 marks under the grade 2 category and also a grade 3, which means it was dangerous what she did or potentially dangerous, okay? Now usually with observation turning right, it's down to emerging from a minor road here onto the main road, okay? That's what it usually is. Now she didn't give me any feedback, but that's what I assume by the way she described briefly 1 or 2 right turns, what she meant, usually from minor to major. Now, when you're taking a right, as soon as you get the direction, check the mirrors, indicate right, try moving over just towards the right center of your lane, check the mirrors again on the way down just to watch out for any cyclists or anything like that might be creeping up. And then when you get to the close to the line, then you should be down in 2nd gear on the approach, and then stop usually in 2nd gear just before the line there. And this is where the looks are really, really important. In fact, we need to be looking before we even get to the line, as I mentioned earlier with the roundabout. So even like when you're 30, 40 meters, be previewing the road, be looking left and right, so watch out for the red car there, the yellow car there. Are there cyclists there? Are there pedestrians kind of walking along here? Is there a woman pushing a pram over here who may well cross the road in an unsafe area? Always remember, the observation does not begin and end here. It should be starting way back here when you check your mirrors, and as you're approaching, try and preview the junction. Now sometimes people lose marks here because they literally pull out without moving the head enough. So they sometimes think, I know from experience with learners as well, they pull out even if they're blinded, and they're under sometimes the false impression that just because I can't see anything, well, there must be nothing there. But I would say to them, just because you can't see doesn't mean there's nothing there. It means that there could be something there, but they're hidden behind a wall or behind trees or something like that. So that's why I'd say, at a right turn, keep the head moving. Left, right, left, right. Do not stare the one way too much. Don't focus on the one thing too much. Things change all the time. That's why you have to keep the head moving left and right. It's so important just to creep out bit by bit by bit. Just peep and creep. If you're blinded by a bush or you're blinded by parked cars, do not rush it. Make sure you creep out bit by bit. Even if you're over the front this white line here, who cares? You can't go from a position of weakness. You have to get into a good position where you can see. So make sure that you edge out if needs be, and that will gradually make the junction a bit more manageable and a bit better. And as you're edging, keep the head moving. I must stress that. And then once you find that it's safe to go, just when you're over the white line, around about there, give or take, and you're moving, just get that one last look to the left end. So when you're taking a right, remember you're going into the red car's lane, so make sure you get that one last look towards the red car, just in case you see something, like for example a cyclist in the distance. Like, it's perfectly safe for you to go, but there is a cyclist in the distance. Because you're previewing the junction, you might have noticed some traffic lights or a pedestrian crossing up here. So you've already seen that cyclist in your last look about 100 meters away. So now you're going to be alert as you take your turn, and as you're up here stopping at the pedestrian crossing, whatever like that. You have already made a mental note that there was a cyclist back here. So maybe if you are stopping here, you will be extra aware of your mirrors before you pull off, just in case that cyclist tries to come up on your left or on your right. So that's generally what observation turning right is all about. It does depend on the junction, but usually it's down to possibly a lack of mirrors, but more likely a lack of looks, a lack of creeping out, and just kind of rushing the junction and not getting the looks in left and right. This person, as I mentioned already, got a grade 3 mark. So that means that the tester felt that she didn't look to a standard that was in any way acceptable. This is where sometimes I like to link yield right of way with observation turning right. So let's say, for example, if we get rid of these two cars for a second, just to illustrate this. If this person comes up here, it's a bit of a blind junction. As the person is here, the learner driver thinks, well, there's nothing there, okay, I'm just going to go. So all she does is gives one or two looks. There's no last look, there's no creeping out. She just basically goes without the requirement for multiple looks left and right. In that case, she's probably going to get a grade 3 on observation turning right. Now, if she had done that exact same thing, okay, but this time there was a yellow car coming down here and she pulled out in the same way, and the yellow car had to stop suddenly or take extreme preventative action to avoid getting too close to her, well, in that case, I would say that the person would have failed on right of way turning right, because she took the right of way away from the yellow car, whereas the previous time she wasn't taking any right of way, but it was still poor observation. As you can see, they're both very much connected. You have to have good observation in order to avoid getting marked on right of way turning right or turning left or anywhere for that matter. So the next area that this person lost out on was under reaction and anticipation. So this is to hazards really. So 1 grade 2 mark under reaction to hazards and 1 grade 2 mark under anticipating others. So reacting to hazards, the mark there is probably to do with how she acted in the moment, and the anticipation of others is failure to read the situation ahead. So one is kind of talking about the present, and one is about kind of trying to read the future, read the road ahead. Now, she wasn't really able to give me much feedback, but she did say something interesting. She said in the email that a lot of the time when she's driving, say with family or friends or something like that, the other people beside her are normally pointing out the danger ahead, or they might say things like, oh, there's a pedestrian going to cross up ahead there, or watch out, that car is slowing down there pretty quick. So she says that maybe she was lured into a false sense of security because other people were often coaching her as she was driving and she wasn't really doing it for herself. And that's why when I'm giving driving lessons to somebody, I always try and let them do things for themselves as much as I can once they're able to, because that's the only way you learn. That's the only way you're going to improve and hone your skills, is by being thrown in at the deep end, if you know what I mean. So let's talk about reaction to hazards. So it could have been maybe to do with parked cars, for example. Now, I'm just saying parked cars. It could have been roadworks. It could have been, maybe she slowed down too late, or maybe she, misread the roadworks up ahead. It could also be to do with going over speed bumps too quickly. Sometimes people lose marks for going over speed bumps too fast and in third gear when they should be, down in second gear. It all depends. It could be a number of things, but a lot of the times it's to do with parked cars. So maybe she misjudged the decision to go here. Maybe for example, she pulled out when this car was too far down and she should have held back. Like, that would be an example of a reaction to a hazard there. It could have been maybe she didn't stop in time for a pedestrian crossing the road. Maybe she overtook a cyclist in an inappropriate way, let's say, got a bit close to him or something like that. The main thing with hazards is it's so important to read the road ahead, and that's why I would always say to people to concentrate on what's ahead of you. Yes, be aware of the mirrors, but don't focus too much on the mirrors. It's much more important to read what's ahead of you. So in this situation here, for example, if you're reading the road ahead, you'd say to yourself, okay, there's a bit of a tight street there because of the parked cars on both sides. There's an oncoming car. Be aware of any other gaps there that I might be able to go into, and watch out for any pedestrians or cyclists that could be hidden behind these parked cars further up. As I said earlier in the video, just because you can't see them doesn't mean they're not there. And that's related to anticipation as well. I often get people to do commentary drives in the lessons, so I'd say to them, okay, tell me what you see ahead of you, and then you'd say the things that we mentioned there. And if you can anticipate what's ahead of you, you're more likely to anticipate what might go wrong as well. So if you can see that there's a cyclist up ahead of you, and you say to yourself, oh, there's a cyclist up ahead of me, you're probably more likely then to be prepared for that cyclist moving out, or looking over his shoulder and taking a right, or something like that. It all comes down to experience. It all comes down to practice. It all comes down to getting professional driving lessons. Read the road ahead, commentate on what you see. Don't let other people coach you too much, because that means that they're practically driving the car then, not you. The next area where this person lost mark was here, on gears. She lost 2 grade 2 marks on gears, and she has a pretty good idea of where they went wrong, because the tester said to her that she was moving the gear stick too hard and that she was over accelerating before she went up the gears. So it's very, very important that when you are changing gears, that you move the gear stick very, very, very gently. Sometimes that transition from second to third can be a little bit tricky on certain cars, maybe some older cars. It shouldn't be an issue on modern cars. But I always say to people, when you're going from second to third, move the gear stick very gently and just have a little pause just here in the middle, kind of where neutral gear is. Have a little pause for a split second, and then just kind of push it up then with this part of your hand, just gently up, you know. That's one thing. She didn't tell me which gears she moved too hard now, or what particular number of gears were the problem, but sometimes I find that second to third can be a bit of a problem. Look, all I can say is just try and move the gear stick nice and gently. There's no need to force the gear stick. That can cause problems if you do. I've made plenty of videos on gears. I'll leave some links in the description. On the accelerator then as well, as I said, the tester said she was over accelerating before changing gears, so she was giving it too much juice. See, that's not very economical, and eco driving is a big part of modern day driving, where you are advised and encouraged to get up the gears quicker without letting the engine get too loud. I mean, there's no need to let the engine get so loud. As soon as you hear even the slightest little bit of excess noise, you should be getting up the gear then. Some cars have a little prompt, a little arrow on the dashboard, like a shift arrow, that'll advise you to go up the gears. So I always say to people, don't change gears because the engine gets loud. Change gears before the engine gets loud, and that's more economical. You're going to save energy, you're going to save fuel that way. And just on the accelerator then, sometimes people have a habit of just being over enthusiastic with the accelerator. So I always say to people, just make sure your heel is on the ground when you're accelerating, and just press it very, very, very gently, because some people may just have heavy feet. Maybe it's connected to the footwear. I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's just more down to technique. So make sure when you're accelerating your right foot, you have the heel on the ground, because that takes a lot of the weight off your leg. And just ever so gently accelerate when you're moving off and when you're building up speed. There should be no need to press the accelerator down so hard. Maybe a little bit when you're going uphill, but apart from that, you just have to accelerate nice and gradually, nice and gently. And then we have right of way at roundabouts. This was a grade 3 mark, which was a dangerous mistake, a very serious fault. Yield right of way at roundabouts. So she knows what happened here. The tester told her, there's no doubt about this. She admits herself that, let's say she's the blue car, she basically pulled out in front of another car coming around who had the right of way. She wasn't really able to explain why. It was just the fact that she wasn't looking, and I would assume she wasn't concentrating. So maybe in the moment she was focusing too much on her exit up here, or here, wherever she was going. Maybe she was thinking of something else, and that lack of concentration then just caused her to be lulled into a false sense of security, and she pulled out then as another vehicle was coming. That's what happened. She completely admits it, and she said she deserved to fail, and she knew herself after that her time was up then, basically. In this picture here, this illustration, look closely at the yellow and the red car. If you notice there that the yellow car is behind the red car, at least he would have been behind him a couple of seconds earlier. The red car is pointing this way. The red car is going to go the other exit, the going away from the learner driver. But this yellow car is pointing in a different direction, which indicates that the yellow car is going to come around like this. Sometimes I find on roundabouts that people only judge the first car, and they kind of forget about the second car, to bring it back there a second, who could be following the first car. Especially if this part here is downhill, and this part here where the learner is waiting is uphill. That means they're going to be moving faster, and they could be a little bit slower moving off. So what could have happened was the learner driver here probably saw the red car going down this way, for example, did not anticipate the yellow car behind him at all. Maybe the yellow car was in a bit of a rush, maybe the yellow car was going downhill, and the blue car a little bit sluggish moving off maybe, and all of a sudden then it feels like the blue car is pulling out in front of the yellow car. Even if the yellow car is going a little bit fast, the yellow car has the right of way. It's nothing to do with who gets there first, it's about who's on the right or who's already on the roundabout. And if you look at the yellow car, he's on the right and he's on the roundabout as well. So the blue car has to give way to the yellow car. That's why I always say when you're waiting and yielding, be aware of the hills. If they're on a downhill, they're going to be able to pick up speed quicker. If you're not on a downhill or you're on the flatter uphill, you're going to be a little bit slower taking off. Sometimes now, if you bring it back there, like if it was a really big roundabout, you know, like the big 2 or 3 lane roundabouts you'd see on ring roads around the country, you might be okay to go then because the space is so much bigger. But on the smaller roundabouts, the space is going to be less, and that's why it can be a little bit dangerous to pull out there. Like I say, I'm just giving you an example there. I'm not sure of the exact and the specific circumstances of what happened. All I can say is what she said. She wasn't concentrating. Maybe she was looking the one way too long, like I was alluding to earlier on. She wasn't focused and she pulled out in front of a car, and she deserved it. And it kind of goes back to what I was saying about how observation is closely connected to yielding. Because if you're not observing here, you're going to risk pulling out in front of the yellow car. The comments section of my videos can be a great way to learn. So why not share your own thoughts and experiences of the driving test down below in the comment section. For example, what did the tester say to you after the test? Or what mistakes do you think you made during your driving test? I can learn from that, as can other learners. So thank you in advance for that. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and I'll be back very soon with another driving lesson video. Until then, stay safe.